And the title of his talk is Why Open Source Community Do and Do Not Work Anymore. Welcome on stage.
Thank you very much. Indeed. Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here. And indeed, I'd like to tell you why open source projects do work or why they don't work anymore. So, first things first, obviously that presentation is kind of a personal experience that I made over the last 21 years. Others might have made different experiences. So I bring my views, my thoughts on the table based on my journey in open source. Others might bring in others. And just for the purpose of this talk, I use all these terms, free software, FLOSS, and open source interchangeably, because what I tell you applies to all of that. So a very quick glance how my journey into open source started, because that obviously affects a lot how I see things and what I'm telling you today. So as you can see, I've been around for quite a while. It started really in 2001, back at my former school, when we had that new thing that was called broadband. It was really fast internet back then. We just had one problem. We had the connection, we didn't have the router. And 2001, that wasn't a commodity. Those were really very expensive devices to buy, and we didn't have the money. So we maybe a bit naively said, well, we just built one ourselves. Little problem, we didn't know the software and we didn't have any knowledge, but we made it. And why did we make it? Because the software as well as the knowledge were available. And I'd like to introduce one thing that is maybe a bit of an unpopular opinion, but at least back then it helped us. It was free of charge. We could use it because our problem was also money. And we quickly learned there is documentation, there are forums, there is something called a community, people who actually helped us with our very inexperienced questions. And that was an interesting experience already. 2004, then I started volunteer roles at OpenOffice.org, and what I experienced there was really a lot of trust put into me, a lot of responsibility given to me that I had not expected. And I really learned a lot of things also about myself, because colleagues told me, don't you want to take over that role? And I was baffled because I never thought that role would be for me. So I could sort of discover myself. And that sparked some sort of circle that I volunteered. Out of that, I learned a lot of things. And I could use that knowledge I took out of that for professional engagements. For many years, I worked in freelance IT journalism. I did some consultancy for companies, and lots of that was based on the knowledge I made by volunteering. Then I could give something back, so that was quite an interesting circle that it sparked for me. Now, this open source, FLOSS, free software, how to define it? There are many ways you can try to do that. One is a legal one. It's a specific license, we call it FLOSS. Fair enough. Next option, a technical approach. It's a repository that is freely accessible. Could be FLOSS, doesn't have to be, could be. It's one way. From a tax or financial point of view, it's run by a non-profit, it does something for the public good. Could be FLOSS, but doesn't have to. We have many free software projects that are run by companies that are not a non-profit, and we have other non-profit projects that have nothing to do with FLOSS, so it's not an accurate description either. Organizational, it's the same. It's issued by a foundation or by an association. Yes, it could be FLOSS, but then we have so many associations doing other things, and we have so much free software published by companies, doesn't really help. So what I'd like to focus on is, indeed, as we heard before, people. Because for me, the human or social side of things is what is a distinctive element to us. I'd like to describe the work in free and open source software as some sort of humanitarian project. No, we don't bring food. We don't fly doctors around the world to do something good. We do something good through software and technology. And whether it's with a non-profit, whether it's a for-profit company doing that, at least one aspect of that is always or must always be to do something for the good of society. You can make money with that, but at the same time you do something good for society, and you should have some higher goals in mind. Of course, medication and feeding people is much more important than software, but we do our part for something good in the world as well. So that's the point I think is the most distinctive element to me about what a free and open source project is. Now, this is a high goal. How is the reality? If we look in this room and at this conference, many people, they like open source, they like open standards. Fair enough. If you ask your friends who are not that much into IT, honestly, they might not care. There's a software that does the job. Why would they care what is the license, what is the file format? There's a software they can access easily, maybe inexpensively or even free. It does the job, whatever. So it's not that they always look at those ideals that we might have in mind. Then right now, the current situation in the world might give us a big benefit because people start finally to think, who has my data? Who has access to my data? Who hosts it? But then, on the other hand, we had so many scandals already, and yes, it did help the free software movement, but did it really change things massively? Did a ton of people walk away from one messenger to a free solution? Did really a ton of people walk away from one social network to a federated one? No, honestly, not really. It helped us, but there is not that one mass movement taking place. The cost factor that I mentioned in the beginning is maybe still relevant, but not that much, because we these days, unfortunately, I'm not advocating for it, have a lot of those subscriptions. So when back in the day you paid hundreds or thousands of euro for software, the entry level at the moment is for a beginning, then we have audit sort of login for sure, but it's not that distinction anymore. And we are faced with double standards. Just last week or the week before, we had a massive outage of some clouds. Yes, it was inconvenient, but was there a blame game? No. And now imagine you run something yourself on free software. How much people would complain that that thing is now down? So some are too big to fail, others are not. And if you look in real life, I would compare that a bit with animal welfare. Everybody knows you can look how animals are treated, how you can buy your meat, or if you should buy meat, or with buying local. It's really convenient to just have that one big online marketplace delivering straight to our doorsteps. And people might have in mind, yeah, if I buy local, I support the local stores, but they're lazy, they're convenient. Everybody does it like that. So that's a bit the reality check. Now, the open source world has changed. When I started, we were the new one. There was this magic of the new. We had a lot of bonuses. We were really, in an idealistic view, perceived, and now we're business as usual, which is good because it means we did arrive on the market. We are not the new one, and let's see if they make it. We are arrived at the market, but that means we are in competition, if you want, with others, and we have the same measurements than others. This benefit of the new we don't have anymore. Plus this black and white we had in the past with that one big proprietary company trying to destroy free software and those rebels in the project. It's not like that anymore. And that's also a good development. And I think we do have a fair share in that the world is changing. But it means that at least on paper, there are many, many more people doing open source. So there's a different competition on the market. So what we had as unique selling points in the past, it might be diluted. It might not be relevant anymore. Looking at the projects, we are growing. Projects have arrived at the market. Many are driven by associations or foundations. So there's a sort of professionalization taking place. And that is good, but it also brings its problems. I mean, we do have our own lobby organizations. 25 years ago, that was sort of unthinkable of. Now that adds commercial value to the projects. There is a value in the brand, in the reputation, in the code, in the knowledge. That is, again, good, but whenever there's money, whenever there's power, there's also desire. And that brings us to one thing that I describe as politics, not the governmental politics, but people politics, when things are done in a political way. And that can be quite a burden for projects that we have to deal with. Now, what can go wrong? And it's unfortunately a long list. One main thing that can go wrong is if projects fail to balance the interests between the projects and the contributors, whether they're individuals or companies. That is becoming a growing challenge, in particular when there's money at the table that we need to somehow master. Then projects are growing, they have problems on their own, they are quite busy with themselves often, and we really miss, that's my perception, we miss to interact more with other projects. We have a fantastic venue here to do so, but overall I think projects are more and more busy interacting not with others, but with themselves. This is something we need to change to avoid reinventing the wheel. Then something that's a problem in every company as well, if you are narrow-minded, we've always done it this way, you're not changing, you're not growing, you're not evolving. That's a big challenge. And then, of course, even as a FLOSS project, the economic situation has an impact because, of course, we do need money. We need money to organize events, to travel to events. Who can be affected? Our contributors, for better or worse. They find different jobs. They lose their job. They win the lottery. They want to enjoy their life, or they need to make ends meet. That all can affect what people can contribute to your project. The same with end users and customers if you run a company. The situation changes. Customers might walk away from free software. That's all a possibility. Sponsors and donors, if you rely on donations, the economic situation, the inflation, all those crises that we see, that can have an impact on you. And in the long run, will affect you. What else can go wrong? The market. We can have an established project and all of a sudden there's this fancy new great project or this fancy new web app that does the job massively better than your product does. Can happen. You can have forks in open source. That can happen. That can affect your project down the road. And of course, governance is something then that can really go badly wrong because we heard that also before, and I liked it a lot. You have leaders in projects, you have people driving projects and steering the direction. But in the end, whether they have a corporate background, whether they are individuals, they are human beings. They have feelings, they have different backgrounds, different life perspectives. And somehow all people in the project, especially in the leadership, they need to be compatible, meaning they need to somehow be able to work together. And they need to be competent in a world that gets more complicated and has more regulations, more bureaucracy, as we have heard. If people are not competent, that's also a problem. Responsibilities is a challenge, because even in a purely volunteer project where you cannot expect somebody to do something, there are responsibilities, and this we are all just volunteers, doesn't fly. Then you need to professionalize. So if you don't get that done, there can be a problem down the road. And of course, laws and regulations, they also apply for non-profits. It's not that we get a discount because we are not for profit. We, at least in Germany, we get a bit of monetary discount on some payments, but the rules are the same. We might even face more rules than for-profit associations. So also that is something you need to deal with. So in the end, the market has changed, and how to unwind the situation. I think one aspect is, again, boils down to the individuals. We need to remember our roots. What is the ideal goal we should all pursue? It's making projects sustainable, which is easy to say, much, much harder to implement. Supporting, to a certain degree, the common good. We do software, we might sell something, but we do something for the common good. This is part of our mission, part of our DNA. We are open, we don't discriminate. Anybody can use our software. Anybody can participate in producing that software and the documentation and the translation. Contributors need a special connection to the project. When they are around for long enough, they do, and this is what we need to source. And mentoring and knowledge transfer. You might have a project that is functioning at the moment, but transfer your knowledge, prepare for a change in leadership, for a change in people. And again, we as projects must support one another. And that brings me to the conclusion. What I think our strength is indeed the people. If you have the right people in your FLOSS project, that is of course the precondition. This is our strength because they have a very specific mindset. This is why they are there, why they engage themselves. And if we use that skill set wisely, I'm convinced we can have better software that we can offer, we can make better decisions. So in the end, it boils down to the human being that we need to focus on, apart from all the legal implications and the economic situation. And if we focus on that, I think this is the distinctive element we as FLOSS projects have. Thanks a lot.